Morning, everyone. Mr. Reeves here just alluded to the fact that we had snow overnight, and yeah, welcome to November in Buffalo. Careful what you wish for. We do have some guests this morning. First, I'm going to bring up Tom Hobart.
Good morning. A reminder, this is the last day for voting in the primary election. The polls close at 8 o'clock tonight, so if you're going to vote, vote early. On Wednesday, I introduced the candidates, and there was one that I did not introduce. I'm going to do it now. Dave Reeves.
Thanks, Tom. And good morning. The last time I held the microphone in this room, it was casino night.
Yeah.
So those of you who were here at that time perhaps recognize me, but if you don't, my name is David Reeves. I am one of the candidates for the resident council. What you do for voting for me is very good, very bad, it's your decision. What's much more important, vote for our presidential elections tomorrow and our senators, because they run the country, we don't. Have a good day.
I would say vote like we do run the country.
That too.
Another guest who for most of us needs very little introduction. Mrs. Oriel Leonard's making her way up here. She is the official Canterbury Woods cheerleader.
Good morning, everyone. Just a moment, please. When you see the pom-poms, you know what that means. The Canterbury Woods cheerleader is up here. Well, there was really not very much to cheer about this year, except, of course, Rob keeping us safe and free of the virus. Well, he'll be cheered at another appropriate time. However, at this time, we need to cheer our staff, the wait staff, the cooks, the housekeepers, the nurses, the therapists, maintenance, drivers, receptionists, and many, many more behind the scenes. Now, cheering is fine, but it's not enough. And since this is the season of giving, we as residents at Canterbury Woods think of our dedicated and loving and serving staff, who in spite of the pandemic virus come every day to serve us and keep us safe and happy. Well, let this year's Employee Appreciation Fund show our appreciation for their hard, loving work. Be generous, be extra generous this year. Now, last year's donations amounted to about $500 per resident, more or less. But let's do better, much, much better this year. You will find there, where is it? In your in-house mailbox, you will find a white envelope with a red print on it, Employee Appreciation Fund. Pick it up, read it. It has all the details about the employee fund. Now, this Employee Appreciation Fund ends December 4th. It's not too far away. And in your way, cheer our wonderful employees. And now, a cheer for all the giving residents. Hip, hip. hooray. This is the day to cheer the residents who will be giving joyfully and gracefully and gratefully to our loving staff. Thank you very much. Rob, this is for you now. You have to wait for your cheer.
It's almost impossible to follow that act, right? I mean, it's so awesome. And I thank Mrs. Leonard and her entire committee, Mrs. Rosenau, for all that they do for the staff. This year, like any other year, I know that the staff is blown away every year by how generous and thoughtful the residents of Canterbury Woods are. And now, unfortunately, for some nuts and bolts stuff. So, if you're following the numbers locally with COVID like we do, you'll notice that they're up drastically. 151 cases on Friday, 118 registered cases on Saturday. The Sunday numbers are yet to be in. So, New York State's up over 2,000 a day now. Which is up dramatically from the summer and early fall months. And Western New York is no different. We're triple or more where we were in the middle of the summer. So, I mean, really what that means is that I'm hoping and I'm pleading with our residents here at Canterbury Woods to take that into effect when you are going out with your families, when you're gathering. Please, please, please be extra cautious. It's so easy to let our guard down. Please understand that the virus is extremely active in our community right now, and we need to continue to be making our own luck. So, please be extra cautious. I can tell you a few things. So, on the positive side, I think I mentioned this briefly last week, but myself and some staff members actually sat in a conference call with the New York State Department of Health. And the reason for that conference call last week was to help us or tell us to get ready for and prepare for the eventuality of a vaccine, which will start when it's ready in New York State and throughout the country within long-term care. So it'll start both in the long-term care actual residents and in the staff members, specifically skilled nursing and assisted living, possibly independent living, and other types of long-term care, aging care facilities. So that's where it's going to be starting. We have had to go through a process in the last week of getting ready for that, designating how we're going to get the vaccine and so on. So this is a very positive thing. They are saying to us, they being both the state of New York and the federal government, to be ready for a possible vaccine by the end of this month or early December. There's no guarantees, of course, but in our own internal planning, that's what we are gearing up for. So we have to designate how we're going to get the vaccine here, how we're going to store it, who's going to be charged of administering the vaccine, the amount of people we would like to get the vaccine. And I can tell you this, we are sending them the numbers with designate not only the nursing home and our assisted living, but all of our independent living residents and every single staff member with a buffer, because we have people coming and going. So whether the Department of Health accepts that and sends us that many doses for people to choose or choose not to get the vaccine, that remains to be seen. But that's the direction that we're taking. So I tell people, if you're wondering when the vaccine is coming, the Department of Health says it's possibly coming by the end of this month, and it will be distributed to long-term care, aging services, and staff at that point. I have to assume that it's going into the hospitals for direct care as well, but we know it's coming to long-term care first. So much more to come on that. As I get updated information, about vaccines and the timing and so on, certainly we'll be talking about it here. Another big change that you saw is in New York State is the visitation policy relative to people that live in other states. So on Saturday, Governor Cuomo announced that they're no longer going to have a list of states where people would have to quarantine coming to New York State, mostly because New York State is bad itself now. So what they're doing is, if you come from any other state at this point, you have to get a test and have a negative test within 3 days of coming to New York. And then you would have to be tested within 3 days of being in New York. So really the quarantine right now is 3 days. For us, if somebody or a loved one is in another state, in a state that was previously on the New York State quarantine list, we will want them to bring with them a proof of a negative test within 3 days of them arriving in New York State to visit someone. They would have to sign up to have an antigen test, just like we're doing now for visitors to stay inside Canterbury Woods. They would present that proof of a negative test within the previous 72 hours. They would get an antigen test when they got here, and then we would test them every 48 hours with an antigen test during the time that they were here. So we're going to follow the New York State guidelines, and luckily we have the ability through the antigen testing to continue to test people right along as we have. If you have questions about that, you can email me, rwallace@echa.org. We will put an updated memo out to residents on that today, obviously to address the changes in New York State. Just going down my list here. Obviously, we know the big issue we talked about last week is mandatory testing for companion aides and companions and home health aides that come in for independent living. Any medical staff that comes in and treats our independent living staff, could be therapists, nurses, etc., and family caregivers. All of those folks will need to demonstrate that they've had a negative COVID test within the last week of coming in. So it's not, and I want to reinforce this, the test is not from the day you get the test, it's from the day you get the results. So if the results came in today, which November 1st, or November 2nd, I'm sorry, they would be fine till November 9th. And then we would look at the next test and the next test when the results came in. I know that many folks have come and actually been tested by us, over a dozen at this point, either family caregivers or personal care aides. If people still want to get tested by us, either here at Gate Circle, that's available to you. Call 929-5800 here in Williamsville, and we will get the information on the times of that testing here. And at Gate Circle, it's 929-5600, and we will get you the information on the time for that testing there. This is the PCR test. This is the nasal swab that we have to send to a lab, and it usually takes 2 to 3 days to come back. So hopefully most of you got tested last week, towards the end of the week, because really on Wednesday, in order to continue to provide care to folks, to independent residents in their home, you will have to provide us with some sort of a copy, some proof that you have gotten a negative test within the last 7 days. Here in Williamsville, you have to provide it at the security checkpoint. If you don't have that, unfortunately, you're not going to be allowed into the community. And downtown at Gate Circle, you have to be provided right at the front desk. Now, there's been a lot of questions about this. There's been a lot of back and forth. There's been a lot of stuff, I can tell you that. Keep in mind, folks, there is no perfect setting. There's no perfect plan out there to prevent people from getting COVID. There's no perfect plan. It's mask usage, it's social distancing, it's being cautious, it's continuing to follow what's happening in our local communities, as I'm talking about, be cautious, but there is no perfect plan. What testing allows us to do, hopefully, is mitigate a community spread. Because as I've said here we are on November 2nd, and we have not had any COVID cases within our communities. But what I continue to say is it's not if, it's when. And so moving forward, we're trying to design our systems that when somebody does get COVID, it's minimal and we can keep it isolated. And that's part of this as we go forward, the ongoing policies and procedures that we put into place. Keep in mind, there's a lot more COVID in the community. We have family caregivers that are out in the community coming in to take their loved ones. Obviously, that's a risk. We have healthcare professionals who are out in the community with more COVID in the community, coming inside people's homes to give them activities of daily living care, meaning they're providing intimate levels of care. Obviously, that's a risk. Many of these folks take care of multiple residents, multiple apartments. Some of the direct care, some of the companion aides here in Canterbury Woods take care of or look in on a handful of different residents in their apartments every single day. So keep that in mind. Many of these folks who are companion aides, personal care aides, other healthcare professionals go to other long-term care and aging services organizations all over Western New York. And they also come here. Please keep that in mind. So there's no perfect system, there's no perfect plan. This is us continuing to focus and adapting to what we need to do on an ongoing basis to do the best job we can to ensure the safety and health of our residents, the safety and health of our staff. We are not perfect, but we're going to work every single day to ensure that health and safety. And with that, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to email me, rwallace@echa.org, and we'll be back on Wednesday. Thanks.